Hi everyone, welcome back to the Lucabeth Lounge, the cozy space for everybody who loves Lucas and Elizabeth from One Calls the Heart. Today we have me, Jillian.
Me, Blanca. Hello.
And me, Div. Hi, guys.
Today we're going to be talking about grand gestures and little moments. Div is going to be moderating this one because this is kind of her baby. She came up with this list of gestures, and so she's going to take it from here, and we're going to discuss some big and little moments.
Okay, guys. So before we dive into the podcast itself, I just wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, thank you for your enthusiasm, for showing us that you're happy that we're back. It's good to be back. And largely the response was positive, but I did want to clear up a couple of things just because I went back and I watched it, and a couple of the comments seemed a little concerned. So just to kind of maybe clarify a couple things. So this season, we are slightly divided in terms of how we absorb the season as a whole. So we did go into this thinking, okay, we're kind of 50-50 to, I'm sure you figured it out now. Jillian and Linda had more of a positive outlook, as opposed to Blanca and me. And we're not saying we hated the season or we, disliked it or whatever. We're just saying our expectations were a little different. And I think the way we took it in pretty much was slightly different. But, we love Lucas and Elizabeth. So at the end of the day, we're going to love the scenes. We're going to find a way to love the scenes. So I just wanted to say that. And we're going to try, but you know what? We do have other Lucas and Elizabeth fans who feel the same way that Blanca and I do. And we want to make sure everybody's represented. So anyway, I just wanted to say that.
I'm hoping that our different opinions, like last season, we've talked about this, like with each other. Last season, we pretty much agreed on just about everything. And now this season, we kind of disagreed on quite a few things. So it's just going to be a little bit of a different dynamic, I think. And I think it'll hopefully keep it interesting. So hopefully it's
And quick note about the Nathan mentions, for as long as they keep putting him in scenes with Lucas and Elizabeth, we kind of do have to talk about him. We don't want to. We were hoping the triangle stuff was done, but they're pushing the friendships, so we do have to address that. And we literally are the only podcast that is exclusively Lucas and Elizabeth, and literally that's all we talk about is Lucas and Elizabeth. So if it seems more concentrated, it's because that's literally all we're doing, and we're not touching every single scene that we see in each episode. So
well, and we talk about Lucas and Elizabeth, so if there's something that is interfering or coinciding, anything that involves Lucas and Elizabeth, we're going to be talking about. It's not just the scenes where they're alone, because if we did that, there wouldn't be much to talk about. So
correct. Okay, so what I want to do is go in chronological order. So we start at season. Did I already say this? I'm sorry, guys. I am not the expert moderator. This is a one-time thing, hopefully. So we just want to go from start to finish and just discuss, is he even a grand gesture guy? Because I probably have a different opinion than most on this one. And hopefully it's not. Hopefully it helps people see it in a more positive light, at least. But anyway, so let's start at the beginning. Lucas's first gesture towards Elizabeth, giving her the library, or giving her rather the space for the library. He finds out that she's looking for a space and she's dejected because it's not working out. And he's just started to become enamored by this woman. And he has the means. So he's like, okay, well, I just bought this investment property. I'm a book lover. This is stuff he's saying to himself, obviously. She doesn't know this right away. But he has this place and he probably didn't know what to do with it. And he thought, well, a library is a good start. So that is a grand gesture because he's literally giving her a building. So that's what I would consider it. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I agree. I do feel, I don't know if this is the right time to say it, but it reminded me. So yeah, I guess I'll say it now. I feel like the grand gestures that he does do though are never like, they're never selfish in any way. They're never like to put on a show or like to prove anything. I mean, he has this building. It's empty. He doesn't really know what he's going to do with it yet. He's a literature guy, right? So she's looking for a library. Why not? So it's not like he's like, oh, I'm going to build a library, you know? So yeah, grand gesture for sure. But all of his grand gestures are just come from a good place in his heart.
Right. And not from a plan to sweep her off her feet.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Totally. I agree.
Yeah. And this is to also benefit the town. It's not just for Elizabeth. As he says, Hope Valley needed one. So contrary to what some people say, it is for other people. Yes, Elizabeth was the one that needed it, and he later calls it, he later says she was the inspiration for him getting involved in the library itself. But it is for the town. So kind of going into that, Lucas doesn't just give her this space and then back out of it. And he's just like, here you go. And, you know, he actually puts the work into this library. He helps her build the shelves, not very well. We know that, which makes him more endearing. Okay. And then he helps organize the books before the library opens. We see him putting everything away. And then he donates regularly. We've seen him in 3 different instances where he wants to replenish the books and add more. Like in episode 1 of season 7, he brings that crate of books from his mom. And then in episode 7, he bought the books. And then again in episode 8, he does it. So he does do more than just, you know, like say, oh, Hope Valley needs a library. He actually proves with his actions that he's invested. And I'm going to open the floor.
Sure.
Yeah. So also, if you think back to like before the library was open, it wasn't just Elizabeth that wanted the library. You remember the kids were borrowing books from Elizabeth, and they were like, oh, it would be really nice to have a library. So it's not just for Elizabeth either. I mean, like you said, it's for the town, but like the kids really wanted it too. So yeah.
Blanca?
No, yeah, I agree. I think it's something he would have done probably, or he would have wanted, even if Elizabeth hadn't come up with the idea. I mean, because it happened so shortly after he arrived, he didn't have to think about it, but being a guy that enjoys literature, I'm sure the idea would have crossed his mind at some point, sooner or later. Yeah.
Okay, so then in episode 9, Lucas is taking a break from manning the magician booth during the Founders Day Festival, and he is loosening up his wrist, playing that game. What was it? The ring toss? Was he at the ring toss? Yeah. So Elizabeth comes over and Lucas starts engaging with little Jack, and he's like, hey, how would you like a teddy bear? And so we know what happens there. He's so cute about it too. And that's the first thing he gives little Jack.
Which is really cute to look back on, seeing like how far they've come. Like little baby Jack, he's like, here's a little teddy bear. And now look at where they are.
Yeah, and then that teddy bear makes an appearance throughout the seasons. Have you noticed? I'm assuming it's the same teddy bear. We see it in the library quite a few times. I don't know if we saw it this season. I need to go back and look.
I don't know either. I didn't notice.
We got like 2 library scenes. It might have been in one of them. I don't know. I'm not gonna go on the record on that one because I'm not sure. Okay, So then we have the Christmas festival, which Lucas plays a huge role in because he does two big things. Besides just putting on the festival, we know there's the lanterns and there's the dinner, which he organizes. And Henry questions his motives. He's like, well, usually I would think there's something more. And we don't get total confirmation, but this could have been about Elizabeth. Or Henry genuinely doesn't know anything about Elizabeth, and he's just questioning Lucas's motives in general.
I just feel like the Christmas movie is kind of it's an episode that we really first see into like the vulnerability of Lucas.
Agreed.
And people are still on this like coattail of, oh, we don't know anything about him, he's mysterious, that kind of thing. So they're still just like, okay, why are you doing this, you know? Whereas Elizabeth has already kind of come further than most people because of the library, you know, like when she was like, you mean out of the goodness of your own heart you're gonna donate this building? So she's kind of already experienced that whole like, are you sure this isn't like for some ulterior motive, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then like the dangerous liaison scene, that's another one for her. So like nobody else has had that yet. So now they're still into this Christmas festival thinking like he's got something that he's hiding or whatever. So but then I think this is like their first experience with, yep, he's just doing this out of the goodness of his heart because he wants to bring joy to the town.
And I think also because my impression was that he also wanted to be in contact with people in town, because he mentioned at the beginning of the episode missing his parents, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I think he, in a way, he wanted, or he needed to feel the company others around,
mm-hmm.
not feel alone during Christmas, because he
Mm-hmm.
says that it's a special time for him.
Yeah, and he's sad because he's lonely, so he makes himself not lonely. And then looking back after season 9, we know that all he wanted as a child was a place to call home and for him to know people and for people to know him. So that's just like his desire in his heart is like to have this community, you know?
Yep. So it's not always just about Elizabeth, okay? I think sometimes people just zero in on, oh, he's doing this for Elizabeth. Of course, Elizabeth is part of the town, and of course, sometimes he does it with her in mind, but he genuinely wants to connect with people. He's one of the most prominent businessmen in town. He has, again, I think I say this word too much, but he has the means. So, and we don't know, right? We don't know what his motivation really is for throwing the festival, because when the episode starts, he's walking out of the saloon and Elizabeth is narrating and just saying, hey, he wanted to throw this festival, and so he is. But then we have the scene on the bench with Lucas, Elizabeth, and Little Jacques, where we get a little bit, I think this is the first time we get more background, or no, okay, I'm not saying that properly. We get more knowledge of his background. So we learn he used to travel with his parents all the time and that he's been all over the world, and how he wanted to bring those traditions to Hope Valley, specifically Munich. I think he was modeling this after the Christmas celebration in Munich. And then the lanterns come up. Do you guys think the lanterns were pre-planned by Lucas because he had all the supplies, or did the conversation with Elizabeth trigger it?
I think the conversation with Elizabeth triggered it, because like the look on his face when he says it, he's like, you can tell he's like deep in thought while he's like thinking about it. And then she's like, oh, it must have been beautiful. And he's like, yeah, it was. Like he gets this little, you can see it, like the wheels turning.
Exactly.
So I think, I don't think it was pre-planned, because then he goes and gets the supplies and he's like, hey guys, I mean, you know, the Mercantile has everything anybody would ever need. So it makes sense.
primarily candles, but they do specialize in other.
Right.
They do carry other
Lantern making accessories too.
There.
Can I say one more thing about his motivation behind anything? If it is about Elizabeth, first of all, is it such a bad thing if his motivation is Elizabeth? Not really. And if it is, think about how sweet it is that he has been pursuing her in a very gentle way for so long and has been so patient. It's not like he's like, hey, Elizabeth, I'm going to throw you, like a festival or something like that. But like, if it is his main motivation, it's actually really sweet to think about because he waited so long.
Yeah.
I would say
sure.
It's because the conversation they have by the Christmas tree, when he's kind of sad that Christmas is closer to an end.
Oh.
That also gives me the idea that he's truly enjoying being close to other people and not being alone, basically. So I really believe Elizabeth was the only motivation behind the whole festival thing.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I'm just saying if any of it is about Elizabeth, I don't think that's such a bad thing. That some people think it's like a bad thing.
No, and let's remember how courtship worked in the 1910s. Okay, the man is supposed to court the woman. He's supposed to woo her and show his interest and be like, here, this is what I have to offer you. And yes, he's wealthy, but he's also saying, look, we share these interests. Look, I'm investing emotionally into wanting this relationship with you. We already have these common interests like books and reading, and yes, we have a similar background, which helps us understand each other better, but I genuinely like you. And if he's gonna put money into it, come on, isn't that what guys do even nowadays? We don't really call it courting, but I don't know, even in general, that's what I do. When I love somebody, I go all out, and sometimes I think I go all out too much, and I'm not, wealthy like Lucas, but it is from the heart. So for me, I understand it, I'm sure a lot of us do. It's not just me, but when he gets questioned for being, shady in his motives and, trying to buy her affection, we already have gone over the fact that we don't see it that way. But we can't talk about Christmas and just touch on the lanterns. We have to talk about them a little bit more. So how cute was that scene? And how sweet was it for him to include the kids? I mean, that was brilliant. And the way he goes over to their table and like hunches over and he's like, I know, let's do it, guys. He looks at all of them.
It's so cute. And Elizabeth is like, what are you doing to the kids?
It's so cute. They were his little elves. Didn't he call them his elves? They needed our help. And that's an example of Lucas being good with kids very early on. Some people were like, what? He was teaching class? Really? He has experience with kids? Dude, go back and watch the Christmas episode, okay? Lucas was killing it with the kids, with Allie already, and then with all these other school kids. And little Jack, okay? But the lantern scene, it's become like an iconic Lucabette scene, and I love it. And then the dinner, which, come on, it's his first time. Yes, they almost ran out of food, but
that's because so many people came because of popularity, not because of incompetence.
No. And he didn't even advertise, he said.
Right. Which also, that just reminded me, in the season 9 finale, when Nathan is like teasing him for not bringing enough food, in the Christmas episode, he's like, oh, I'll leave it to Lucas to run out of food. I didn't connect those, but that's funny.
I didn't either. That's a great point. That's a really good point. And did you guys, this is so subtle, but Gustav got his first mention in this episode. I think Jesse's the one who said, we don't get to see Gustav here, but something about the chef being crabby. Something.
Oh,
I
really?
can't remember. Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, we have to go back and watch it. But we don't see that sweet face, but we do get our first taste of Gustav. And again, we talked about this before. Lucas interacts with pretty much every single town person in this episode. And even before this, I think even in his first episode too, like he's interacted with everybody. So that's another thing I loved. And this is just tying in with what we said about him wanting to help the rest of the community. Yeah, this is him. This is him trying to fit in. This is him trying to make friends. One of the most rewarding things about this episode is Jesse changing his opinion of Lucas. He finally gets to see Lucas as this generous man who really has a good heart. This is something he starts to see what Clara sees in Lucas. He even tells Lucas, he's like, Clara thinks big of you. And then they toast to their friendship together. And then we see where where Lucas spends Christmas with Jesse and Clara and Henry. And is Hickam there?
I think so, yeah.
And Hickam is there. Yeah, they eat pancakes, which is great.
Single guys.
Yeah. So yeah, the whole thing was also set up to help Lucas's relationships grow with the rest of the town. I think that's how the writers set it up. So
yeah, and they made it pretty obvious that he was talking to everybody, and not just talking to them, but like he like touched Molly's shoulder before he saw Elizabeth, and he was like, oh, I'll see you later, and touched her shoulder. Which then he goes over to Elizabeth when she's like scooping out the punch. And I think honestly that's one of my favorite moments of the whole Christmas week. Just when she sees him and she's like, hi, it's so cute. And also, can we just mention also that I said also twice in the same sentence. I'm just when he mentions liking the stew.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth brought the stew. And that wasn't like he didn't know that. It wasn't like, oh, the stew from Elizabeth is really good. He's like, oh, the stew is really good. And Rosemary's like, yeah, that's from Elizabeth. I mean, just those little things that they throw in there is like,
he's going to get to eat that stew for the rest of his life.
Yeah. And shepherd's pie.
Hopefully with no lard. Blanca, you were saying something.
No. I was just agreeing with Julian about the punch thing, which was one of my favorites too.
Yeah.
And then during the lanterns, after the lanterns, when Lucas like eyes her hand and then just takes a breath and they walk away, like he just wants to hold her hand already, and he's so patient for so long. It finally paid off.
Seriously. Okay, so then entering season 7, this episode sets up the writing arc, which takes us through the beginning of season 9. So she just brings up the fact that she submitted a story once upon a time. She sent them to, she says 2 editors, but I think in season 4, when she and Jack have the conversations, she sent them to more than 2. But anyway, whatever.
That's what I thought too, but
yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, so anyway, that's when he picks up on that and he's like, oh my gosh, really? Like, you should try again. And then it's a genuine interest, right? It's a genuine like, oh my gosh, I want to help you with this. And then we find out that his mom is an editor. And so he's like, yeah, let me read your short stories. And of course, she gives it to him, which is a big deal. The fact that she trusts him. And then his feedback is not well received by her, Which, come on, I still give her credit because she wasn't pouty about it to his face. Anyway.
Well,
she didn't.
She didn't complain about it, but she was just like, I mean, a little hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, which is understandable because it's not easy to hear that stuff.
Yeah. And it does shape, I think that's the first time they really disagree. At least is once you've established a friendship. I don't really want to talk about season 6 where they're still getting to know each other. And I love how they resolve it because yes, she's dejected and initially she doesn't, understand what he's saying, but then she takes it to heart and she goes and she tells him, you were right. And then he's so cute about it. Like, excuse me, can you repeat that? That's how they resolve that little conflict between them. And that's the first taste we get of it. And oh my gosh, that's one thing I love about their relationship is these two. So far, we haven't seen them actually like flat out yelling at each other. And hopefully they've set the tone for the future that won't be how they go about.
Because we did see an argument between them and she was like, are we arguing? Like she didn't even realize they were arguing.
Right.
But yeah, so when she goes and says you were right, I love that she doesn't go back and like change her stories. I love that she just is like, that's okay, I'm gonna put that in the past and I'm gonna take your advice to heart and write a novel now. Like I'm gonna move on and do something different. I like that she didn't go back and change it. I like that she just moved on to something new.
Yep.
And just the fact that the advice he gave her really speaks of him, his motivation. I mean, he's not simply trying to get her because if that were the case, he could have easily said, they're great and we're gonna get them published and you're a great writer and everything. He really cares about her future as a writer and will do whatever he can, whatever it's in his power to help her reach her potential as a writer, which I think is a great testimony to the kind of person Lucas is.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that just proves his motivation isn't just
to impress her or to
her. Yeah,
her heart. Right,
exactly. Yep.
And if you need one example of the writer setting them up as endgame, that's it right there. Because what he does is life-changing for her. And not to take away credit from Elizabeth, because she wrote the story. And like he says in episode 10, I'm sorry, did I write those chapters? So he doesn't take more credit. He doesn't take any credit really for and even in episode 2 when she's like, oh, thank you for helping me or whatever, he's like, it was all you. But he nurtures that, and I think that's what, and Lucas brings that to her life, which I just, oh my gosh, this man, he just brings positivity. I mean, she was so sad for so long, and she lost her husband, and she had this heartbreak, and she had to go through raising this child. She deserves a man like this who comes in and who puts her first and is like, you know what, you should do this for yourself.
Yeah, let's take a moment and thank the writers for making Lucas a literary, I don't know, what do you call it, interested in literature, and his mother being an editor was like one of the best decisions that they could have made.
It really was.
Like, that's so good. It's so good. I love that storyline. That's the whole author storyline is one of my favorites.
Yeah, me too.
So then they have a 20-second scene in episode 2. So we'll skip to episode 3, and we just briefly talked about episode 2. This is a small, tiny moment, and it's when she's narrating at the beginning of the episode, but it is the first time he brings her tea while she's writing.
It's so cute.
And again, this could be setting up what happens throughout their lifetime. He'll probably bring her tea all the time.
Oh yeah.
He
For
brought
sure.
Nathan tea. He didn't bring it to him, but he gave it to him. So he is the tea making man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's just a little gesture. He does
Heck
so many little things.
Mm-hmm. So then moving on to episode 4, season 7. He offers to spread the word. So there's this chicken pox. Did I say chicken pox? I meant chicken pox. There's a chicken pox outbreak, and the town is concerned and they're on edge. And he overhears Nathan and Elizabeth talking about how they should, notify other people about this thing spreading, which is so funny because this episode aired like right as the pandemic, right as COVID started becoming a big thing. So people could relate.
Yeah, there's the quarantining and
yeah. So he overhears them talking, and then he volunteers right in front of Elizabeth. So of course Nathan is all skeptical, like, oh, and he is not very happy, and he walks off. And Elizabeth thanks him, and then he walks off. And then we have the cute "you deserve nothing but unconditional love" thing. And then Nathan is grumpy and rude because Lucas was apparently 5 minutes late, and he doesn't like his time being wasted. And Lucas handles this beautifully. He's just like, "Oh, my apologies." After he's like, "Oh, are you always such a stickler?"
Yeah.
And then Nathan goes, "You know what, Lucas? The town isn't here. So you can back out if you want." The town being Elizabeth. This is like their first really veiled conversation where they're talking about Elizabeth, and they know they're talking about Elizabeth. And I didn't appreciate that. Come on. And then Lucas is like, "I'm a man of my word." So this is a little gesture that he overheard Nathan and Elizabeth talking, but this is something that he wanted to do for the town.
Well, and it's like if he did overhear that and he didn't volunteer to, like, he's, if he had time and a horse, it would be weird if he didn't help. It's like, if a guy helps somebody out, why is it such a bad thing? And it is kind of funny, like, looking back on their relationship has always been the same, hasn't it? Lucas and Nathan. It's always like, it's just the same as it always was. The snarky banter.
Questioning my poor guy's motives. And then later on in the episode, Rosemary gets really sick, and Carson and Faith are at her bedside trying to figure out how to get her better. And then Carson says, "We need lots and lots of ice." And Elizabeth thinks of Lucas. It's like, "Oh, he's gonna have plenty at the saloon." And so Lee goes over there, and Lucas literally empties out. I think he empties out, right?
He said, "That's all I've got."
That's all I've got. Correct. Yeah. And so I don't know if Lucas knows Elizabeth is the one who sent Lee. I don't know. Actually, we're mostly trying to talk about Lucas and Elizabeth related gestures, but I wanted to include this just because Elizabeth is the one that got the ball rolling on it. But it's an example of Lucas. This has nothing to do with Elizabeth. This is just Lucas being a good guy and wanting to be there for Rosemary.
Because something we know about Lucas is that he hasn't stayed in one place very long before Hope Valley, right?
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that every time that he was in a place, he didn't care about the people there. I'm sure he did. Maybe he didn't have enough time to build many relationships.
Yeah.
I'm sure he at least he has a friend that we know of, and and then his friends from Louisiana, right? So
Yeah.
his friends, we know that too. But I'm sure that regardless of the amount of time that he has stayed in every place that he's lived, he really cares about people because he's not a loner. I mean, he may have felt lonely during his childhood or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's a social guy and he cares about people and enjoys being in touch with other people and connecting with others. So yeah, I'm sure all of these gestures that he does for the town, he does it because it's in his heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's the person he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we have the bachelorette parties for Jesse and Clara that take place in the saloon, and Lucas offers half the saloon to the women and the services of the chef extraordinaire, the one and only Gustav. And the rest of the men are crabby about it and not very happy with having to share with the women. One person in particular says women aren't allowed, but he's never been to a bachelor party. So anyway, I guess it wasn't in any of the books he read. But women. Anyway, so this is for Elizabeth. I think she asked and he wants to be there for her, so he does. But the women benefit from this too. And whether or not he did it for Elizabeth,
I'm sure he would have done it even if Clara
Right.
or some other girl would have been the one.
yes,
asking him.
absolutely.
Not-
Absolutely.
It's not.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
when
he's just like, well, what do you mean? It's just half the saloon. It's fine. Like, he doesn't even see the problem, and which there really isn't a problem in it. But
Nope.
it's one of my favorite scenes when Nathan puts his foot in his mouth, and then she goes to Lucas, like, I need to talk to Gustav or whatever, and he's like, he's in the back. She's like, thank you, Lucas. I love it.
Yeah.
So
It's fun.
cute. And then at the end of the episode, we have the flower giving, which I wish I'd watched the scene right before we talked about it. Not the actual flower giving scene, but the scene where Florence is talking to her about it.
Oops.
While they're in line, the buffet line, and she's like, oh, you deserve it. And she's looking at Lucas and Nathan and like trying to figure out who gave her the flowers. Florence says, I think she says you deserve it. And this is where I feel bad because I didn't do my homework and remember exactly how I wanted to phrase it. But Lucas looks away, so you almost wonder, like, did he hear what Florence and Elizabeth said to each other? I'm not sure. But then the next day he goes over to her house and he gives her the flowers and he says, you deserve it. To me, that was him giving her flowers without any expectations.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
He's like, you don't have to say anything. She said, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just enjoy them. Like, there are no expectations. I just want you to enjoy these flowers. That's literally what he said.
Which is a thing he does several times, also in the Union City trip, which we haven't reached yet, but it's the same with him.
Yeah,
like,
I just thought you would enjoy it.
Whatever you want, and I'm not expecting anything because you say yes or you take the flowers or whatever.
Yeah. And then he doesn't bring up the flowers again, right? He's not trying to remind her about them. Like, hey, I got you these flowers. But someone else does in the next episode. I see, I'm not the only one who gave you flowers. I'm not afraid of competition. Yeah, whatever. But then we see how he behaves in the next episode. Yeah, go for it.
Can we go back to the bachelorette party for a second? That's when they play darts, right? Is that the one? Okay. There's so many bachelor parties that it's hard to keep track. But But when they're playing darts and she's having fun, and then Nathan goes in and lies and says that Bill wants to talk to Lucas about the food, and Lucas is just like, he could be like, oh no, I'll talk to him later, but he's like, oh okay, and he goes right over there to talk to him about this because there's some issue that he's helping figure out, and it doesn't, the fact that he's playing darts with Elizabeth doesn't deter him from helping out, you know. So
and the fact that Nathan behaves like let's choose the adjective
like a 5-year-old
doesn't mean that he comes back and, well, we don't see what happened next, but I'm sure he didn't come back and say,
yeah,
you just
exactly.
like to go away. No, I'm sure
just in true Lucas fashion, he just rolled his eyes and moved on because it's not worth the fight.
He's more mature than
takes the high road.
He just does him. I feel like until the hug, Lucas was just secure in how he was pursuing Elizabeth, and he was secure in how she was responding. And he knows Nathan is interested, but Nathan is kind of a non-factor because when they pass each other by the row houses, and he's just gotten done giving Elizabeth the flowers, and then he sees Nathan taking them over, just looks over at him and smirks and then just walks off.
Yeah, like it doesn't make him self-conscious or anything. He's just like, oh, okay.
Or upset. No. Yeah, he's fine with it.
Yeah. And like later, I mean, we'll get to this too, but like it kind of coincides with later when like the save it thing, and Lucas is just like, you can do whatever you want. Yeah, it's just another one of those things that just proves that he's just confident in what he's doing, and he doesn't, if some outside factor is going to influence it, then
get intimidated or gets aggressive about any of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Unlike others.
Yeah, while we're on that scene, I'm glad you brought that up, Jillian. I'm bringing this up only because I saw this last night. There's a GIF on Twitter, in the Twitter library, that a Nathan fan made of that moment where Lucas is saying, I hope you have Allie and Elizabeth's best interest at heart. And the GIF says, yeah, you've seen that one?
Yeah.
Says, what about little Jack? Are you friggin' kidding me? He cares about that kid. He just didn't say it in that. Why would he say it in that scene? Like, the whole conversation it's like an ongoing conversation about how Allie is dragged into this whole triangle at that point, right? She's in the heart of it. So that's why he's just talking about Allie, and he's not talking about little Jack. His whole point is Allie's invested in this triangle right now. So don't just think about how you pursuing Elizabeth is going to affect you. Think about Allie. So, but of course they're going to take every stupid thing out of context. Anyway, I just had to get that out there. Coming to our meaty episode, Union City, which we did a whole podcast about. So we're obviously not going to go into depth. We're very proud of how that episode turned out. I love that episode. We did great. But this is a grand gesture, right?
Yeah.
I would say this is the grandest, you say? Grandest gesture he's made. If only because of the amount of organization and preparation that it takes to offer Elizabeth the possibility of attending the literary event and spending the whole, I think it was a whole weekend, right?
It was one night, yeah.
It was one night.
And then we find out when they're at the picnic that he had to jump through a few hoops to get the tickets because they were sold out, and he had to go through a mutual acquaintance. And it touches her because she's like, oh, okay, so he went out of his way to make sure we got these tickets and that we got to go to this reading. And so we got the picnic, we get the suite, he gets a room, she gets a suite. We get the reading itself, which was expensive, and it was at the Yorkton, which I guess, according to Rosemary, is one of the finest theaters this side of what did she say?
The Rockies.
The Rockies. So, and that woman knows what she's talking about.
Yeah.
And then we get the fancy dinner. So we got these other little things. All these things comprise the Union City trip itself. So it's a package, grand gesture.
And then so many little things scattered all around, right? Like carrying her suitcase and opening the car door for her and offering her coffee and whatever they eat. I don't remember.
Macaroons.
Yeah.
Macaroon.
And there's flowers, people. There are actual flowers on that blanket. He thought of everything.
Well, and people always criticize him for, like, Gustav packed the food, and I'm like, yeah, but Lucas set it all up, you know. Like I've said this before, if my husband had a professional chef, I would not be mad about him using it. You know, like, yeah, have him pack the food.
I know, what the heck. I mean, go ahead.
I always think too that, like, the fact that he brought snacks and then he went and got snacks at the reading, like, that's my kind of guy. Like, you gotta bring some snacks with you, and that's a little gesture.
Yeah.
There are just so many in this big grand gesture that make it special, you know.
He has gotten so much flack from Team Nathan for using Gustav, and I don't get it. There's food in the kitchen. Of course he's gonna go get the food from the kitchen, and he has a chef. He doesn't cook. Well, he does in her house, but he's not gonna go cook when there's already food there. Right. Does he know how to make macaroons? We don't know. Anyway, so that was Union City, where he thought of everything. And we find out that this trip was just because. And the truth comes out that he's not a fan of Virginia Woolf. But what are his motivations here? We've talked about it, but this is all about her. This is about giving her a good time. And like Rosemary says, when they're talking about this trip before she leaves, once in a while she is allowed to do something just for her. And that is what Lucas gives her, is this outing with her in mind.
And I'm sure the fact that that she's a recent widow played a part in his wish of simply wanting to offer her a nice plan and something to look forward to and something she would enjoy, regardless of the company. She could have gone with Rosemary and enjoyed it tremendously because she loves that outfit. So
exactly. Yeah.
But the man took his shot, you know? You can't blame him.
No, of course not.
How else is he supposed to woo her? You know, like how? It's not his fault that he's actually making the effort here.
Right.
Not killing a tree. But anyway. So then we have episode 8, where he is at the saloon and she comes over with a basket of her gratitude in the form of chocolate chip cookies. And he is not done. He still has something else to give her. And we see what he gives her. The autographed copy of Virginia Woolf's book. And come on. It's one added thing. He could have this is one thing that I was like, did you really need to do this? I don't know. I think even Chris tweeted about it and was like, Lucas, save some gifts for next season. So this did feel extra to me. I don't know. I feel weird saying that. I mean, it was such a cute scene, and I'm not discounting it, and I'm not saying he shouldn't have given it to her, but still, I was like, you already did everything.
I'm not mad about it.
No, I'm not mad.
I
But
think it's so cute.
I think it's in character for Lucas to want it to simply want her to have something. Even I mean that they had the opportunity to meet her, right? Both of them. So he simply took that opportunity to make sure that Elizabeth would have not only her memories of that trip, but also something that she could cherish and enjoy over and over again. Aside from the memories, which are, of course, are precious, but to me, it was in character, and it was a really sweet gesture. Maybe not as grand as the whole trip, probably not, but something extremely sweet, and that again tells you the kind of guy that Lucas is. If they had, imagine that they hadn't become a couple afterwards, I'm sure he would have never regretted to having given her that book.
no,
because it's something that he knew that she would enjoy, along with everything else.
Yeah.
He did it because he knew that she would enjoy it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is precious. I mean, you're not gonna like, if there's a cute guy that's asking you to do some things that he knows that you would enjoy doing, like going to a book reading and then getting you an autographed copy, are you gonna complain about it? No.
Exactly. And from one of her favorite writers. I mean, for people who love literature,
Right.
it's a big deal. So yeah,
Right.
for me it's not too much. It's perfect for me.
No, it is. It's a cute scene, and I'm not discounting the fact that he gave it to her. I'm just like, that's a lot of gifts, but it's not an expensive. Well, he did have it leather bound and stuff, which is sweet. But anyway, now she can look at it as a book that her future husband gave her.
I loved it when you said that, Dave. I hadn't never realized that before, and it was like,
He will keep it forever. Be like, look, honey, when you gave me this, or what, darling.
Darling.
I wanted to call him that again.
Me too.
Awake.
You can show their grandchildren. Look what Grandpa gave me when we were young.
Well, and Jack with the teddy bear. Oh, my daddy gave me before he was my daddy.
Oh, so sweet. So then he finds out that Elizabeth is taking a little trip into the woods, and the wheels in that brilliant, beautiful mind are turning, and they see each other on the street after he is being adorable with this dog. And he gives her the binoculars, and he's like, hey, I thought you could take this on your trip or your excursion, whatever. And this is just his thoughtfulness, next level thoughtfulness. And he's lending it to her. He didn't go buy her a pair of binoculars. It's just him thinking she's going on this thing. She's probably this is gonna come in handy. And I hate that stupid scene afterwards, but anyway.
I always laugh so hard when he's petting the dog, and then Elizabeth comes over and he goes, "Oh, nice dog." Like he tells the person, "Oh, nice dog." I always laugh so hard at that.
I see dogs in their future. I see dogs in their future, which is not what we're talking about. But anyway. A lot of the fan fictions have the Lucabeth fan fictions have them having a dog, which is on point with how I see it in the future. So then the binoculars come in handy. And that was okay. Let's just add that's also for his students. He's not just like, here, go look at stuff. He's like, I thought you could, the kids enjoy the binoculars too. So then moving on, he commits a faux pas here by sending her chapters to Helen without her permission. But let's talk about his motivation, which was Elizabeth.
Yeah, it was again what we were discussing earlier about he genuinely wanting her to become successful as a
Mhm.
writer. And given that he has his mother as an important contact,
Mm.
it's natural that he turns to her. His only mistake is not obviously not having asked her first,
Mhm.
but I'm glad that he makes mistakes every once in a while, because otherwise he would have been a too perfect guy and kind of one-dimensional, I think. And I'm glad that we see these little thoughts of him and how he
Mhm.
grows afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, this little snafu. Well, and
Hmm.
then it's something that Elizabeth has to forgive him for. So it's just something that in turn makes them closer,
Those are,
you know.
yeah, totally.
And he's like, I know, I'm sorry, you know.
Yeah,
Believe me, I learned my lesson, kind of thing. So,
you get to see how mature he is, acknowledging that
mhm.
he
Yeah. And that's another thing where they have a little bit of a conflict and they resolve it amicably. And she even tells Rosemary, I can't stay mad at him for too long, which hopefully
Yeah.
will play into their future.
That's a very revealing
Yeah.
confession. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And he comes to her and apologizes and it's like, I'm very sorry. I see now that I should have asked you first. And she's like, okay, well, your heart was in the right place. But he takes it a step further and he's like, still, that doesn't give me the right to do what I did.
Yeah.
Come on. This man is like just not taking the easy way out and saying, okay, cool, you forgive me. He's
Right.
like letting her know, I understand, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
And
so
then
there we go.
someone wants to publish her book, so
Yeah, come on. And it pays off in the end, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So then we go into the finale, and to me, this is big, and I feel like this gets overlooked a lot. The oil company. Lucas is ready to wash his hands completely of it. Henry has been mishandling the funds and made things difficult, and it is financially putting a strain on Lucas. And so he tried to resolve it and it didn't work out. And so he wants to just be done with the oil company until Elizabeth comes to him and shares her concerns that, look, people are going to lose their jobs.
Mhm.
And I'm glad she came to him because he gets to tell her his side of it. And again,
Mhm.
they resolve the fact that, okay, she thought wrong or thought differently. And this time she admits,
Mhm.
I should have given you the benefit of the doubt. But anyway, the point is, after she goes to him and she points out all these people are going to lose their jobs if he pulls out completely, he goes and he tries to negotiate with Henry. And of course, at first it doesn't work out. But if Lucas hadn't bought out that oil company, that is what would have happened. And so, sure, Elizabeth was the catalyst for that, and she's the one that brought it to his attention, but he also did it for those workers.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't just a gesture for Elizabeth or to show off to Elizabeth, it was genuine concern. Again, for the town.
Yeah. And the fact that like he had been paying them out of his own pocket but didn't tell anybody that, you know, because then he had to tell her that at that point because she's like accusing him of wrongdoings, and he's just like, listen, I just can't do it anymore because this is what's happening. I love that he was doing that without telling people. And that's just another thing. It's like Lucas is not this big flashy like, oh, look at me, I have all this money. He's just not like that. Like, he has money, yeah. Does he enjoy nice things? Yeah. But he doesn't go out and flaunt it and brag about it and make people know the good deeds that he's doing, you know.
Totally.
Okay, now this last gesture is all about Elizabeth. We can't This is not about anyone else, but he sets up a beautiful, romantic, candle-filled library non-date to celebrate the publication of her book. So this is him saying we should celebrate. Look, I feel bad about the oil workers. And he really does. But he also wants to give her this little celebration.
He knows the weight of this, you know, she's been wanting this since she was 5 and now it's happening. So he's going to celebrate it with her, or he's going to let her celebrate no matter what else is going on. Because there's always going to be other stuff going on, you know? But it holds such a weight.
Again, I can't help but think of the kind of life that Elizabeth has led since Jack died, because I'm sure, aside from the grieving process, she mustn't have had many social plans afterwards. And Lucas here is giving her the opportunity to spend some time out of her house with a friend, because he's only a friend at this point. And just like I said before, if things between them hadn't worked, this was something that none of them would have felt bad about, because it was just a celebration over something that was meaningful, that was important for her. And that was it. And there was no expectations, as we've said before. It's not like he was making her feel pressured, or like that if I tell him yes, he's going to assume that there is a future for us as a couple. I never got that.
And I love how, again, he's shooting his shot. Like he's interested in her, right? He's not going to just do nothing about it. He's doing something about it, but it's for her. And then he's putting the reins in her hands. We've talked about this in another podcast, but I love that he just puts it in her. He puts the ball in her court. Like, I know this isn't a date, but if it were, I would take your jacket. And then she takes her jacket off. That's not, he's not pressuring her into doing anything.
Exactly. I mean, he lets her know that he's interested, as you say.
Yeah.
But it's always in a gentle way, because he's a gentleman.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And she agreed to it. He's like, I thought maybe we could have dinner as friends to celebrate. And she's like, I would like that very much. She's not like, oh, I don't know. So,
yeah. They always progressed at the pace that Elizabeth felt comfortable with, which was
always
really important, I think. Being a widow.
Yep. And it took a long time.
Yeah. And Erin emphasized this before season 8 too. And she said in season 8, she takes the reins and she sets the pace, and lets the guy know, the one that she's going to choose eventually, what she's comfortable with. So with that, moving into season 8, I almost forgot about this one, and then I realized, because we don't actually get to see it, but Lee has thrown out his back in episode 2, and Elizabeth is feeling bad about it, and she wants to do something for Lee and Rosemary. And who does she ask for help? This is not a trick question.
Lucas.
And have you seen his face? Like when she goes over to him, he's sitting with Helen, and she's like, may I ask for your help with something? I can't remember how she phrases it. But, and then he looks at her and he's like, are you kidding? Like that smile is like, do you even have to ask me? And so sweet.
And I love that she still asked him, even though there's like the tension, because she has that secret that she has to keep from him. And but then she like walks away a little tense and stressed, and then she's like, oh, actually I'm gonna go back and ask him problem. And then I love that you can see his car outside of their door when they get to Lee and Rosemary's house. Like you can see his car outside the door, like he brought her there.
Oh really?
Or maybe she drove there. Yeah, His guy's
Oh,
out
I didn't notice.
Me neither.
Mhm.
I haven't.
Yeah.
Are we sure that's not Lee and Rosemary's car?
It's like right in front of the house. So I assumed it was Lucas's because she's got that tray of food. She didn't just walk there, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like in front of the door. It's not like off to the side.
Like
I don't
part-
think. It's like,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, it could be Lee and Rosemary's, but I'm pretty sure it's Lucas's.
Okay. Dang it. Did we miss something there? Did they take something out? I wonder.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I wish they would put all of the deleted scenes in the deleted scenes.
Yeah. Me
But
too.
I don't
That's
know.
the ones that they tell us about.
Yeah.
Ugh. Toy dog. Anyway, so then we have Lucas and Elizabeth finally deciding to date, and they have a dinner they planned a dinner that night, but early in the morning, Lucas shows up at her doorstep with Sergeant and another horse and is like, I hope I thought maybe we could go for a ride. And it's a gesture. I was like, is this a gesture? Is this not a gesture? It kind of is, right? Because he does think about doing something for her. And he just figured it's something she'd enjoy, which he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Right?
definitely a gesture. I mean,
Yeah.
again, though, it's one of those things. It's like, I mean, it's not like so elaborate. It's something really simple that he knows that she enjoys doing.
Exactly.
And now that he knows that she is interested, why not go pursue her? Like keep pursuing her, even though you already have her on the line. And they just want to spend. He just wants to spend time with her. So
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah. But he always goes about it in a way that is extremely sweet, because it's like he constantly makes her days brighter and her life happier.
Mm-hmm.
He does his best to make her enjoy whatever time they spend together. So yeah, I really love their dynamic in early season 8, because even before they had spoken about dating with those words, I mean, they had known each other for a while, so they, in my opinion, their souls had already clicked, so to speak.
Mhm.
So
Mm-hmm.
they connected and they really enjoyed each other's company. And even before saying the words that you really want to go out with me and everything, I don't know, that they had this closeness and this intimacy between them, and yeah, he kept doing these small things like their horse ride, which is not a grand gesture at all, but yeah, small things to make her happier, to make her life richer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And this next one, honestly, this is weird for me to say, but I don't know how much. Oh, first of all, it's the backyard dinner. I don't know how much Lucas contributed to this and how much Elizabeth contributed to this, because we do know Lucas brings the food over, but we don't know whose decision it was to move it for sure. We don't know if Elizabeth wrote in the note, bring the food over. We don't know if Lucas was like, either way, he accommodated. You were going to say something, Jillian. What's up?
Well, I was gonna say, did Gustav bring the food over? Because she said, make sure you thank him for sending only one dessert. Or maybe he just sent it with Lucas. I suppose maybe Lucas brought it. But I guess we don't know. I kind of assumed that Elizabeth sent a note saying, just come over here for dinner, because
You did?
yeah.
I didn't.
Because I feel like if she were to be like, sorry, I have to stay home, he would be like, oh, okay, like take that as like, okay, I'm not gonna press then, I feel like, yeah, I assumed that she told him she had to stay home, but she didn't want to cancel or something like that.
I think that makes
Yeah.
more sense. Also because she didn't have a phone yet, so they can discuss it over the phone and say, do you maybe want to cancel? And
yeah, and she still got ready. So if she sent a note in the fact that she doesn't have a phone, he wouldn't have come over, and then she's like, oh, okay, let me go change, so she sent the note and went upstairs to change, right?
You convinced me.
Okay.
Okay. And also, Lucas, again, catches a lot of flack for this, but we don't know who lit the candles in the backyard. We don't know for sure. Maybe he brought the candles. That is true. Elizabeth's not going to have like dozens of candles lying around in her house. Maybe she did. I don't know. Anyway, so we
kept
got
them as a souvenir.
Yeah. So we got a lot of candles in the backyard. And again, it's not a big gesture, for God's sakes. They're in a backyard. This is before electricity, even though we see like lights all over Hope Valley. We know, historically speaking, I don't think they had electrical connections at that time.
They did.
Did they?
I think they did.
I mean,
Okay.
city did for sure.
In the city for sure.
I don't know.
In the city,
Well,
yeah.
In Hope Valley didn't always have electricity, right?
Yeah.
Like in the early seasons, they used lanterns and stuff.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No, I was just gonna say, and they're in a backyard. They need light. How are they gonna see? Their one candle is, I mean, yeah, I guess to see each other's faces, 1 or 2 candles is enough, but they wanted it lit.
Yeah. I think that Gustav lit the candles. I think Gustav brought the food and lit the candles because, I mean, it's just speculation, but like when they are talking about, I don't know if it's right after she mentions the dessert and Gustav bringing it over or whatever, or sending it, but they sit back and look around and like kind of giggle at, like, they're like looking around at all these candles and they're just like, and I kind of assumed that was just because Gustav, don't even talk to me about romance. Like he knows, because that's right before he says that, right before this whole date. So I think it's Gustav.
I don't know. Could be.
We don't know. That's what I've always assumed.
We don't know, but I wish we knew, because that man deserves credit. So then we had the backyard dinner, which Lucas accommodated, because little Jack was missing his mom, and that way they could be close by in case Jack needed her, which he vocalizes when they have the picnic in the next episode. And he says this is to, does he say make up for the dinner?
He said, well, our first date didn't go as planned, so I thought I better make it up to her.
So cute. And so we have a nice understated dinner, picnic, where again he tells her that her son, he gets that her son is a priority, which is what leads to her, which is what touches her, and then they have their little champagne toast initiated by her. Any more thoughts about the picnic?
I was going to say that it's a lot more romantic than simply, for example, knocking her door and saying, hey, let's go at the cafe. And I'm not saying this in a snarky way, I promise. But I simply wanted to mention how romantic the whole idea of leaving her a note in her door, and then the place that he chose for the picnic, it was all very, very romantic. So yeah.
I started thinking about Minnie and Joseph in this last episode.
That wasn't as romantic.
No.
I love even just like Blanca said, even the fact that he just left her a note and like knocked on her door, left her a note, and like pieced out. I think that is really sweet. And just a little thing, like it's not, he's not looking for any sort of, I don't know.
Credit.
Yeah, exactly. He's not looking for validation or credit. Yeah. He's just doing nice things.
And then we move on to episode 7, where it is pouring down rain and everyone's worried about Ned, who is in the infirmary after falling down the mercantile stairs. And Joseph wants to hold a prayer in the school/church. And Elizabeth's like, why don't I take you over there? And Lucas is like, no, you stay. I'll go with Joseph. And he does that so that she doesn't have to go out in the rain. Which is just such a gentlemanly, sweet thing to do.
Yeah, and it's right after Nathan just complained about going out into the rain, which I think is so funny that it's so contrasted. It's like, oh yeah, I gotta go do my rounds, even though I don't want to, or whatever. and then Lucas is like, don't worry, I'll go outside.
I haven't.
Those things cannot be a coincidence, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a message there for us to get.
Yeah. So this is literally, these are like literally all the gestures I could think of in season 8. And I wouldn't even categorize any of these as big gestures. And I just want to pause here really quick and just say, I feel like sometimes the media makes it seem like Lucas is this grand gesture guy more than he really is. Because before the season started, Deidre, when she did an interview with, it was right before season 8 started, with Chris, Kevin, and Aaron, where she was like, oh, Lucas is the big gesture guy. Is he going to do something? Is he going to have any big gestures in season 8? And Chris was like, I don't like to look at it as these big giant things. It's either just a dinner. I think he just stopped at like dinner or something like that. And that's literally all we got, right? We got a dinner and then we got the picnic. And what else did Lucas? Well, we have the horses, but he didn't have any grand gestures in season 8 that I would consider.
A lot of
it's
little
just little
moments.
things, a lot of little moments. And I feel like I love Deidre, but I feel like every time she interviews them, she's like, oh, Lucas is this grand gesture guy. We know Lucas likes to do it. And I'm like, I don't know. Lanterns, fine, but it's not, let's not define Lucas as this like constantly trying to be flashy, trying to dazzle Elizabeth guy, because I don't think that's him. And I still struggle with him being like defined as having, I can't even say it right now. He's not a grand gesture guy all the time. I don't even think I would categorize him that way. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. I might be in like the huge minority here.
No,
but
I agree.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about is, are we making him more grand gestury than, or do people label him as such even though he's really not? Because so far I can only think of 2 incidents, 2 examples of grand gestures: the library, giving that to her, and the Union City trip. Everything else to me, they're small little things. They're not like, hey, look, Elizabeth, this is for you, it's just little things that he does for her.
I agree.
So I just wanted to stop there really quick because I don't know, I still struggle with this definition of him being about the grand gestures, and literally every single time she asks him that.
I think it's
unfair. Huh?
I think it's unfair to the character of Lucas.
Yeah.
Right?
Because we have another fan base within the Hardys that are looking to pick apart any little thing with his character and defining him as this big gesture guy, grand gesture guy, which we just talked about. I really don't think he is, but in season 9, I feel like they kind of validated what Team Nathan, claims that, Lucas is showy and flashy, blah, 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 which I don't think he is.
I don't think so either. And I think a pertinent question would be for everyone in the fan base to ask themselves, what has Lucas ever done that he couldn't have done had he not been wealthy? Because the grand gestures after all are about, the people who use this expression, they're talking about the money, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if you ask yourself that question, the answer is the two events, or the two the two things you've just mentioned, Dave, the Union City thing, and what was the other one?
The library.
The library. True. But all the others, and we've mentioned them, and the list is quite long. All the others could have been done by anyone that is not wealthy. By Nathan.
Yeah, he just. Mm-hmm.
It's not Lucas's fault that the only thing the other guy could come up with was a plaque, which we don't even know for sure if he made it. Okay, I think we're supposed to assume he did. And an apple. That's not Lucas's fault, but of course his fans want to take it out on Lucas. But come on, wooing a woman means doing things and showing that you care. And you can't just do one thing a season and, think that that's enough. Granted, that's not how the guys are going about it. But anyway. Okay, so heading into season 9, this is where we see a shift in the narrative. So the way the writers approached it is different than, in my opinion, what we saw from seasons 6 through 8. So we have Lucas and Elizabeth going up in the air balloon, which, first of all, Lucas did not bring the air balloon, okay? He was already catching a lot of crap before the season started because they showed it in the promo. And everyone's like, look, he's showing off, and like he brought the air balloon to Hope Valley. But it also ended up being the catalyst for the Little Moments conversation, and which they talk about in episode 2 on the balcony. So this is the first time that Elizabeth approaches it this way. How did you guys see that scene?
This is the one thing that I really was like didn't love about season 9, because of everything we've just talked about, how he is really good at the little moments. And I think it's really kind of sad that they discredited how thoughtful he is. And Elizabeth says all the time that he's so thoughtful, and he does so many little things. And it was like heartbreaking for me to hear her say that to him. Like, not everything has to be this grand gesture. Luckily, I think Chris did a really good job of making it more of like a humorous kind of thing, where he's just like, but, because otherwise I would have been so sad. I don't know. It made me sad that his thoughtfulness in his little moments were discredited, and of course he's not going to be like, well, I do little things, because he's not that kind of guy. But I'm like, he does little things. So yeah. And like you said, the air balloon, it's not like he brought a hot air balloon there to take Elizabeth. He's just like, oh wow, there's an air balloon here, and guess what I can do? I can pilot an air balloon. So yeah, of course he's going to take her up in it. Why wouldn't he? If he can pilot an air balloon, he's going to do it. So yeah, that whole thing made me really sad.
Yeah, I agree. it was unfair again to me with Lucas, because as you said, most of what he's done wasn't a grand gesture. It was mostly little things. What was big was the sentiment behind those things.
Right.
And he shouldn't be scolded for that, you know.
Beautifully put.
Thank you. But yeah, I felt it was a sad scene as well.
It's like when like later on when he's like just walking her home and he's like, it's the little moments, and she's like, you know, pointing out the big, or the little moments makes them big moments. Well, that's because of, like you said, the sentiment behind it.
Right.
Because it is important, you know. So that just kind of proves it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have two things to say about this. Number one, this is the negative part of it. I didn't like that they used the air balloon as a catalyst for this conversation, because they pretty much made it seem like he was showing off. And that's kind of what motivated her to say, you don't always have to have these grand, you don't have to, I don't even know how she said it. I haven't watched that scene in a while. But it was almost like they were calling to the fact that he was showing off by wanting to pilot that air balloon.
For a second, do you think that was because he said, I know how to operate an air balloon and a hot balloon or whatever it is?
And then she said, why am I not surprised?
Right. Maybe that's the showing off part. I don't know. I'm just thinking.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it could have been. But I didn't like that they used that as a lead-in to, like, it's almost like they were insinuating that he shows off. I don't know. I'll put it this way. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but that's what I took away from it. But as far as what she said, I think she said you don't always have to make it big. So I don't think she was just straight up saying no more grand gestures. No, I don't want you to do it. I think she was saying sometimes little moments, little gestures are fine. But why is she saying that when we've got 3 seasons worth of little moments from this man? Why?
Right.
And then I think that's what I was confused about is, were the writers, okay, this is what I wanted to ask you guys. Were the writers doing this to make Team Nathan either better understand, or were they like playing into what Team Nathan wanted? Like, were they trying to say, okay, well, we need to curb this man's tendencies for grand gestures, because this is a Team Nathan issue. They're the ones who had a problem with it. So what was their reasoning for doing this?
I mean, it's possible that they were trying to shed Lucas of, I know this is hard for me to say because I don't agree with it, but if they were trying to just show Lucas for who he was without the flashy that some people think he's flashy, and their relationship still grows deeper without that, maybe that's what they were going for, to like prove that this is a foundational relationship. I mean, I don't really know. And then also going back, like looking back on the whole season after seeing the whole thing, like I said in the last episode, I feel like it could have also been a setup for a low-key proposal, and having that be special and still in character. But I don't know.
Yeah, and that's a really good point that you made. I hadn't thought about it that way. But with the writers, I just felt like the narrative didn't fit what they're having him do, or what they're having her say in this balcony scene, because he is not all about grand gestures, and it's 2 freaking grand gestures. Come on.
Yeah.
And in the very same episode, we have a little gesture where he brings our ice cream. He brings little Jack ice cream, and then he also brings her one. And who else does he bring ice cream to in this episode?
Nathan.
Nathan. So he's not just doing it for the people he loves, he's also doing it for this dude who, realistically, I don't even know why he bothered, but fine, whatever. That's our Lucas.
Because he's a little jester guy.
Yeah.
He's
And-
sitting in that.
And Nathan
Thoughtful.
is like abusing that with wanting a cone and 2 scoops and blah blah blah. Whatever. Okay.
And Lucas is just okay.
I love, and that's what makes it work, is Lucas never gets worked up. It's the way
I
he
know.
responds to Nathan that I love.
Exactly. Me too.
It makes him the better man, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
But I am
I know.
very, very biased. So
Yeah.
okay. So then we have the Bachelor. I'm sorry, not the Bachelor. We have the surprise party for Elizabeth for her book launch, where, oh, this is another one where I was like, please stop worrying what she's gonna think. Just tell her there's a party. I mean, it was cute, but go
Well,
ahead.
He just wanted to surprise her.
Yeah,
I thought it was so sweet because he's just so proud of her, you know?
yeah,
And then it was probably, planned before the whole grand gestures conversation, or maybe not, I don't know. But either way, when she found out, or when when she was like reiterating when we had that conversation, it really sat with me or whatever. What do you think? Like about the little moments, enjoying the little moments. And he's just like, oh no. I thought it was so funny, but I don't know. I just think it's sweet that he wants to throw a surprise party for her because he's so proud of her. She accomplished this huge thing that she's wanted since she was a child. And all other people want to be able to celebrate with her too. It's not just, again, this isn't just for him or just for her. Like, this is for everybody. Everybody wants to celebrate her because they're all proud of her. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
yeah. My issue with it was what Lucas took away from it, which is in episode 9, when Gustav is talking about what he has planned for Elizabeth's birthday. He's like, after what happened before with the book launch, I don't think I'm ever going to throw a surprise party ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And that disappointed me. That really disappointed me, because I don't even know why he said that, because she understood. She told him, he was thoughtful for throwing her the surprise party. So why is he suddenly saying, I'm never going to throw another surprise party? It was fine. It went well. So that's another example of them changing Lucas in a sense. I don't know, not changing Lucas, but the narrative again. Like, what is
Not being truthful to the character.
Yeah. It's plot oriented rather than character oriented.
Yeah.
It's just to fit this narrative that they've come up with, this new narrative that they've come up with in season 9. And again, I just want to say, for the people who think we're just like being too nitpicky here, hopefully this is just to set up, like what Jillian said, the proposal, and hopefully next season isn't gonna be the same. I don't know, we'll have to see how next season goes. But then moving on to episode 4, he babysits our businessman, our saloon owner / oil, I don't want to call him a tycoon, but our oil company owner, I don't know. This important man is like, I want to babysit this kid, and I'm going to babysit him for as long as my girlfriend needs a babysitter. And he rolls up his sleeves and he does it. And that's what I love about Lucas, is he just like, oh, I forgot to mention this. When he walks Elizabeth and little Jack home, he takes the suitcase and he carries the suitcase the entire way, which I'm sure pretty much any man would do. But another thing I noticed is when she's holding a basket, he always takes the basket from her
I know.
and walks with it, which I don't even think Jack used to do from memory. Not that I'm holding this against Jack, but I'm just saying, like,
He used,
Lucas,
he used to carry your books for her.
he used to carry her books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah. I do love that about him, is that he's so gentlemanly that he takes it and walks with it. But anyway, so he babysits and he brings them dinner, and she's like, oh, I didn't want to cook anyway. So he goes to the saloon and he packs everything. And we don't know how much of a role. I'm sure Gustav played a bit of a role, but he does that. He goes and he brings food so she doesn't have to cook.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has the phone installed without her permission, which leads to an argument. I don't even know how to describe it. It's only an argument if Elizabeth wants it to be an argument. So
yeah. Well, and we know that he got the phone installed because he wants her to be safe in an emergency because of all this stuff that's going on, right?
Yep.
So he does it for her safety.
Yeah.
And he knew that she would say no, which, you know, has been a theme. Well, isn't that more of a reason to ask me first? But in this situation, it's because of a safety thing. He wants her to be safe. So he does it. And then he knows that she's going to, you know, there's going to be some backlash, and he's ready for it. He's like, yeah, I know. That's okay. I can have it removed. And he knows her so well. He knows that she's going to be like, well, maybe you can wait and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So he knew she was going to come to terms with it.
For sure. I think
and
so.
he knows that ice cream is the way to her heart. Similarly to Nathan, supposedly. I think that's the way to his heart. Okay, so then in episode 8, he's walking by and he hears a couple of women talking about these books that they want because they don't have easy access to it. And he thinks of Elizabeth and is like, hey, I know a teacher. Or I don't think he says teacher, but he's like, I know someone who can help you. And so he goes to the school and he tells Elizabeth about these women. And she's like, I can't because I'm teaching, for goodness sakes. And then he's like, you go, I'll watch the kids. And that's not even really about Elizabeth. That's about, hey, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
You can be a resource to these women. So he watches the class so that she can help these women. And the kids have a blast, and multiple people benefit from this.
Yeah.
Super adorable scene.
I love it. I love that he's like, I'll watch the kids for a little bit. You know, you go talk to the women. Again, it's about helping these women who are in town looking for access to books. So, and then I love that he could have just like hung out with them and, you know, watched them, make sure they didn't get in trouble or whatever. But he teaches them a grammar lesson. I love it so much. It's not like, I feel like he just came up with it. I don't know. I loved that he did that, and rather than just sitting with them, and then they all were really into it.
Yeah,
I thought it was so cute.
To me, the reason why he's so good with kids is that he's really in touch with his inner child, which is for me, it's a great character trait, you say? I don't know.
Trait,
a great feature for him. I mean, for anyone. It makes you look deeper.
I agree. So cute.
Okay, so then I'm a little iffy on the timing on this one. Maybe we can talk about it when we talk about the episodes itself. But the birthday, I figured let's just combine it all. Because I'm like,
birthday month.
Was the what'd you say? Birthday month?
I said birthday month.
So much because I'm like, is the birthday the night of the sleepover? Is the birthday the night?
The birthday is the night of the sleepover.
Okay, so when she's saying, I thought you were gonna propose to me, she's talking about she thought he was gonna propose the night that he slept over.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too.
And then but then she saw the ring, a day later, no, I think it was a couple days had passed, and then that's the first time she sees the ring box in his office. I'm just curious because then she says, on my birthday I thought you were going to propose, but she doesn't see the ring box until a few days after the sleepover, which is why I was confused.
It was it was a little confusing. The timeline was a little confusing.
So in terms of the birthday, he gives her the flowers and the card, and then what else? Oh, the earrings. We can talk about that later. But again, going back to what I was saying earlier, he doesn't want to throw a surprise party. He just wants to do a low-key thing, and then he brings the cupcake, and they just have a very intimate, small celebration with little Jack. And that's what he does. And again, I don't know that he would have planned a surprise party so soon, but that's when this whole conversation with Gustav comes up about, I'll never throw another surprise party again, which made me sad. Anyway, so then we have the earrings, which were part 2 of her present. And this is another one. I think some of these things we have to like really, really talk about, obviously, when we're breaking down the episodes. But then he doesn't give those to her because of the supposed pocket watch. What did you guys think of those earrings? Did they seem like Lucas earrings? Yeah, I'm sorry. Again, we can talk about this later. We don't have to.
I mean, I didn't think they weren't. The thing that confused me about the earrings was the fact that he didn't give them to her, but they were her birthday present. I don't know why he didn't give them to her on her birthday. Because he said he didn't give them to her right away because of the pocket watch, and he thought it might pale in comparison.
Right.
But she gave him the pocket watch after her birthday. So I don't. That was. I didn't.
That's
think
why I'm
that,
confused.
And also, he had already given him the watch when he was going to give the rings to her, right? And they get interrupted by that phone call. So it doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
he was going to give it to her even after the pocket watch thing.
Exactly.
And
then they got interrupted.
This is where I really want to say, and this is one of my issues with season 9, is some of this was so plot driven that the character got lost. It's like, would Lucas even do this? Would Lucas even behave this way? Or do they just need him to behave this way because they're trying so hard to push this little moments thing? I'm like, you guys Lucas's essence is getting misplaced because you're trying to make all these things work, and they didn't end up working, like we just talked about, because he was still going to give her the earrings after she gave him the pocket watch. And they were just trying so hard to make everything work. And I think this played into her bursting into his office and being insecure. I think they wanted all this to work, that they didn't think about whether chronologically and character-wise, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
They just were throwing it all together. And please don't get me wrong, the scenes were beautiful. This isn't for you girls, but people themselves. But at the end of the day, come on, stuff has to still make sense. These are professional writers. So
and I did like that there was the angst or the insecurity on Elizabeth's end, and I liked that she burst into his office like upset and insecure. But you're right, the timeline just didn't really add up to it. It could have happened like naturally, but it was a little confusing.
So very controversial, to say the least. Especially when it came to the characters, in my opinion, more so than the timeline or the
absolutely. So now we have, so for all we've been saying about the grand gestures and being a little worried about Lucas being relegated to little moments, I did love the ring. I already said this in our last episode.
Mhm.
I do want to reiterate that because they did let him give her a big ring, which to me is promising in a sense because
Mhm.
he didn't skimp on the ring and they didn't have him
Yes.
skimp on it because of like, let me scale back or whatever.
Yeah. Well, maybe they did the whole, like, maybe they did it to strip him of his apparent flashiness to prove that their relationship is what it is, because not because of his possessions, not because of his money, which they proved in the finale. And then now maybe they'll add it back in to season 10 if we get a season 10. My gosh, I'm getting nervous. But yeah, maybe they'll add it back in now that they've proven to all the characters and the audience that their relationship is solid.
Yeah. So episode 12, the finale, I did want to talk about it a little bit more. Because I do think, I don't know if I just didn't convey this well enough or what happened. I do want to say, this isn't me trying to save my butt, but this is just me being more clear. I did learn to love that scene. Okay. It's like I said, it's not how I would have written it, but Linda made an excellent point. And you guys probably already thought about this, but it didn't click for me until Linda said it. A bridge, logistically speaking, yes, would not have made sense. For him to kneel down, there's like the railings, and for them to have little Jack, they can't really film it in a narrow place. It worked for a kiss because they're tall and they're above the railing. But that is a very excellent point that I didn't think about.
Well, and they would have to keep their eyes on the toddler around the river.
Correct. Oh, geez. Yes. And someone left a very valid comment that they already did the romantic fall scene last season in the finale. So if they did one, they'd be kind of repeating the same thing again, where last season we got the big moment, which was the kiss. And then this season we're getting the proposal, and it could feel repetitive. And maybe that qualifies for the library as well, because we got a library romantic scene too, and we got a library candlelight romantic scene in season 7. So maybe they didn't want to recreate any of that stuff again. So please understand, I did grow to love that scene. It took me listening to some people's opinions to get there. But yeah, I just wanted to say that. And as far as Little Jack, I love how they did it. I do like that he was there, but he didn't really, he wasn't like an interloper or anything. I think my main concern is once Lucas and Elizabeth get married, they're gonna be a family. So let's say the show goes on for another, I think Erin was like, she wants it to go at least to season 20. As soon as Lucas and Elizabeth get married, Little Jack is going to be a huge part of everything that they do. So for me, while it's still just them, while their lives are still kind of separate, Rosemary says, Lucas has his life, you have yours. One day, your lives are going to become one. So my thing, the way I'm looking at it is, right now, they are still a courting couple. They should get their own moments. And again, when Erin did an interview with Jim Halterman from TV Insider, before season 9 started, this is actually like even before the season 8 finale, one of her desires was to see Elizabeth and this man she chooses go on actual dates without the complication of the other man. Meaning what? Lucas and Elizabeth going out on dates without Nathan being a factor. And they let us down there because we didn't get a single thing that I would call a date between Lucas and Elizabeth. We got cute moments. We got moments where it was just them, and we got tons of gorgeous kisses. And they did do a good job of balancing couple scenes and scenes with the three of them. But they've already kind of taken them into domesticity, and I feel like they've taken them into domesticity a season too soon. That's my thing. I wanted to see them interact. I wanted to see Lucas and Little Jack bond. I'm sure the writers know that that's a criticism that Lucas detractors had, is that Lucas didn't spend time with Little Jack. So I think they could have shown that. I think the babysitting episode showed so much of it. But I feel like Lucas and Elizabeth just being a couple doing planned things got lost. And that was my issue with this season. Yeah. And that shouldn't deter other people from having their own opinions, and hopefully it doesn't, because the scenes were great. I'll always love the Lucas and Elizabeth scenes, but they dropped the ball when it came to couple scenes.
I agree. Yeah, I wish they had more quality time on their own, and time to really get to know each other. I love the scene where they talked about their memories from childhood, and I wish we had more scenes like that. Yeah.
And my other concern is they were just like, oh, just a simple dinner, just the three of us. They say that in episode 1. Yeah. They say that, well, that's what ended up happening for her birthday. And then when she proposes hanging out in episode, what was it? I need to stop doing this. But when they're in his office and she's like, how about we do something? And then he's like, what do you have in mind? Oh, just a quiet dinner. It's like, that's what they're going to do when they're a family. That's all they're going to do. I feel like hopefully they'll do like couple husband-wife outings, but come on, don't take away.
Yeah.
Take away everything.
The romantic dates.
Yeah.
I agree.
You've been too quiet, my friend.
I wanted you guys to say what you want to
say your part.
Get it out of our systems.
Because today you have to speak for Linda too. I mean, Blanca and I are a little more critical.
I mean, I obviously would love anything more of Lucas and Elizabeth. And I agree that it would be nice to see some romantic dates, because the dates that we saw, I mean, they did go on dates, but it was like to the saloon, and we didn't see much of it. And, you know, it wasn't anything private like they had in season 8. So I agree there. I disagree with them being domesticated too soon, because of the fact that she has a kid. Usually it goes the other way around, where they're, you know, they get to know each other, they have dates, then you know, they get married and have a family, and then things change, right? But this is totally backward, because she already has a child. So he really is marrying both of them. And I think in order to know that they're ready to be married, they have to be a family first before they get married. So I think after they get married, that's when they can have their romantic dates, because they have emphasized multiple times that they know each other so well. They have had time together that we haven't necessarily seen much of. I mean, we have, though. We've seen, you know, they've had dinner at our house. We've seen, like, before the pillow fight and stuff like that. They've had dinner at the saloon several times. But I do think that they had to be a family first before they could really know that they were ready to be married. I think that's just how it goes, you know, in real life, if there's a child involved. So that's where I disagree. But
wait, when did they have a date in the saloon?
They had dinner in the saloon a couple times.
Yeah. One with Lee and Rosemary. I mean, they all met.
We didn't see it. Yeah,
well,
but
were they dates? Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're going out to dinner, I would consider that a date for me.
I mean, it's just boyfriend, girlfriend eating together. Like I want something.
No, I know. That's what I said. They're not like romantic, like one-on-one dates, but they're still they're still getting to know each other. Like, it's not like they're just not hanging out at all, you know? And I'm yeah, like I said, I would of course like to see more romantic one-on-one private dates, but yeah.
I think a good example, and a relevant one, about what Dave was saying, was that, for example, the dinner they had at her house right before the pillow fight scene. That could have happened, I don't know, after 10 years of being married. You know, the atmosphere was really different to what we got to see in season 8. So that's the kind of scene that also makes me feel like they have skipped a few steps in their relationship, in their time together, because it wasn't really special. It wasn't, no, I don't know. It was just the two of them, like a married couple. For me, it felt like that. So,
I mean, it was sweet. I'm glad we're talking about this. I'm glad that we have different perspectives, because I'm only active on Twitter. So like I get all my opinions from Twitter, and I've seen opinions of both kinds. And I'm glad that we're taking everybody into account when we're talking about this. And hopefully our opinions are just our opinions, and we're not influencing anybody. That's not our goal, but we do want to represent everybody, and hopefully we're doing that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm grateful for what we got. I'm grateful for the kisses. I really am. I mean, that was, I feel bad for Jack and Elizabeth fans, because when I watched the earlier seasons, I don't think they got as many. And I think the camera cut out a lot sooner. And thank God they haven't skimped in the kisses department, which, whatever, I love it. He deserves all the kisses after waiting for so long. But I just, maybe, you know what, maybe next season we will get one-on-one stuff with Lucas and Elizabeth. Maybe this season they just had a different vision than what some of us expected. And hopefully all this talk about little moments was, like you said, Jillian, that makes a lot of sense. If they were setting it up for the proposal not being super big, that's fine. But we do still need, I just feel we need Lucas and Elizabeth quality couple time.
Yeah.
And that's just, yeah. But I'm just hoping this grand gestures narrative was just a one season thing. He didn't really, there wasn't a lot of grand gestures. So that's pretty much it, you guys. We just wanted to focus on grand gestures and little moments.
Thank you so much for watching and listening. Make sure you're following us on social media. We are at Lucabeth Lounge on Twitter and at the Lucabeth Lounge on Instagram and YouTube. See you next time. Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.